Okay, greetings students. This is Mr. Morgan. I'm going to be going over the notes from subtracting integers. And again, the essential question is, how can subtracting integers be used to represent real life? So just like the addition notes, we're going to be talking about how can we relate the idea of subtraction or removal to things that are out there in the real world, or what in the real world represents things that are being subtracted or removed. So the first chunk here, it says when we want to represent a blank or blank, we use blank. So the word that we're talking about is subtraction, okay? And in real life, things that are being subtracted are things that we remove. So when we want to represent a loss or removal, we're going to use subtraction. So any story where something is being spent or taken away, that can be represented by a subtraction problem. For example, I started having $5, but I removed $15 from my credit. Now I know the grammar seems a little bit funky, but the reason I'm doing that is so that we constantly use that word have, oh. But you could say I started with $5. So let's highlight our first key piece of information. It says I started having $5. That's a good thing, so we're going to put that in the green. And then it says, but I removed. That's that key word that we see here, removed. Let's go ahead and box that. That's important. And it says remove $15 from my credit. So that's also important. I'm going to use a trapezoid, which is like a triangle with the top cut off. Okay? So that's our key piece of information. And because I see that key word there, removed, I know I'm going to be dealing with a subtraction problem. So let's start from the beginning and translate this. I have $5, but I remove 15. So again, I have $5, and then I remove. So notice I'm just pulling out the key information. Remove $15. So then let's translate this. If you have money, that's a positive thing. So have $5 is positive 5. But then I remove something. Remove is represented by subtraction, and I remove $15. So in this story, let's think about this. You only have $5, but you remove 15 from your credit. The question is, did you remove more than what you actually have? Well, if you spent $15 on credit and you only have $5 to your name, that means you spent more than what you have. So in this case, I can only pay back 5 of the $15 that I borrowed from my credit. And once I pay back that 5, I still owe some money. In this case, I'm going to owe a full $10. So you still owe 10, which is going to be represented by negative 10. Hence, 5 minus 15 equals negative 10. Or in other words, if I have $5 and I spend $15 on my credit card for something, I still owe my credit card $10, negative 10. Let's move on to the second chunk here. So sometimes we start, in this case, you start having money, or if you want to make it simple, sometimes we start with money, but then we remove some. So let's talk about a story where we start with some money and then we remove some. Okay? So the story goes like this. Mom gave me, and she's going to give me some money because I'm starting with money, so gave me $12, but and instead of saying removed, I'm going to think about something else that also means removed. In this case, I'm going to use the word spent, right? Because when you spend money, that's removing it from your wallet for a particular item. But I spent $20 on an emergency credit card. Alright, emergency credit card is the credit card that parents give to their child just in case they need it, right? They're stranded somewhere or they need to eat and they use the emergency credit card for emergencies only. So then let's highlight this key piece of information. Mom gave me $12. That's a good thing. You started with some money. You got $12 in your pocket. Woohoo, Mom is so nice. But then you spent. Spent is a type of removal. Okay, so I'm going to box that. And then how much did you spend? You spent $20. So that's also important for us to know. Put that in the trapezoid. If Mom gave me $12, I now have $12 in my pocket, so that is a positive thing. So plus 12. And then spent is a type of removal, so subtraction, and $20. So let's think about this story. Your mom gave you 12, but you spent 20 on your emergency credit card. Did you spend more than what you have? Well, you only have 12. You spent 20. So if you spent more than what you have, that means you still owe money on your credit card. You can use 12 to pay back your credit card, but 12 isn't going to cover the 20. How much more do you still owe? In this case, you will owe $8. Okay, so the end of this story is owe $8. So my answer is -8. But that's not the only situation in this story. So for example, say I started with $20 and then I spend 12. Will I have $8 left or will I owe $8? Well, I have 20. I don't spend that entire 20. I only spent 12. So in this case, I will have money left over and will have positive 8. Okay? I know I used the left-hand column, but remember, don't write anything there. That's just for the questions. Okay, so maybe if you slide it in right here, 20 minus 12 is 8. So in this, it's like an alternative example here. Let's call it example 2B, and this will be example 2A. So in this case, if I have money and I remove some, in the end of this story, we will either have money left over or you will owe money, and it just all depends. If you spend more than what you have, you're going to owe money on that card. But if you spend less than what you have, you'll have money left over. So for this example, if you start with money but you remove it, you can end up either with a positive number or you can end up with a negative number. Okay, so you either have money left over or owe money. Let's go to the third example. And then there are situations in real life where you start in debt, right? You start owing money. You already owe some money, but then you remove some more. It's like you already owe money to one person, but then you just keep on spending and spending and spending. And you can imagine how your life will turn out if that's your constant pattern. You owe and then you just keep spending. So example for this would be, say I owe $52 on my card. And then, even though I still owe money, I just had to get something else, right? So then I go to the store and I spend $15 more on that card. Okay? I didn't even pay it off. I just I owe $52. I don't care. I need to get something else, and I spend $15 more. So let's translate that. I have owe $52. And then spend, and then $15. So since I owe $52, that's going to be negative 52. Spent means remove, which is subtraction, and I remove $15 more. So imagine how this works. If you already spent 52 and you spent 15 again, or at a later date, the question is, did you spend more money? Meaning, did you increase your debt, or did your debt go down? Okay? I owe 52 and I spend more. In this case, altogether, I spent more money. Okay, I increased my debt. Instead of just owing 52, now I owe 15 more. Altogether, I owe $67, which is the same thing as negative 67. Okay, so in this case, when you owe money and you still decide to spend more, in the end, you will always owe more money. Alright, your debt increases. Okay, and there's no getting around it. If you spend money and you just keep on spending and spending and spending, you're going to owe more. Your balance is going to go down. You're going to have a negative change there. Okay, so let me flip over to the last example. Okay, and this last example is going to represent something in the real world that's actually pretty cool. And it represents a familiar problem that a lot of students have trouble with when doing integer operations. So in real life, say for example you owed a friend $10 and they were just feeling good that day and they said, hey, well, you know what, you don't have to pay me back. So you had a debt, but then they took it away. So that's called removing a debt, meaning you had a negative thing, but then they took that away. It's like subtracting a negative out of your life. This is called removing a debt when talking about money. In other words, we call this is called debt forgiveness. Meaning you owed something, but then they forgave you and said, you know what, you don't have to pay that back anymore. So that money that was allotted to something else, now you get that back. So it's a great thing, right? We remove a debt is a positive thing for us. We get that money back. They do that with taxes, right? I pay taxes to the government, and if I paid enough, they'll give me a tax return. So say that $2,000 that I had given to the government, right? I gave them $2,000 of debt, and they remove that. So if they remove that debt of $2,000, I actually get a tax return of that money back. Okay, and that's where they got that rule, right? A negative times a negative is positive. I'm removing a negative, and I kind of get that money back. Okay, so let's look at a situation, and as a teacher, the situation I'm going to share here is, as a teacher, I got loan forgiveness about a year ago. That's pretty much loans that I would have to pay, but then they said, you know what, you don't have to pay this certain amount. And let's see how that affected my overall debt. So here we go. Mr. Morgan, that's me, Mr. Morgan owed $30,000 in school loans. Craziness, right? So Mr. Morgan owed $30,000 in school loans. As a teacher, okay, I've been teaching in Compton for a while, and if I teach in an inner city like Compton, I'm actually eligible for loan forgiveness. So as a teacher, the government removed, so I was able to remove a debt. I spelled that incorrectly, let me go back. A debt of $17,500. Alright, that's a lot of money. And that's the actual real life number. It was a glorious thing. Okay? I get all of that, I get that much money taken off of how much I have to pay. That saves me decades of me paying off my school loans. So let's mark the text. We want to use our strategies. First key piece of information is that I owed $30,000. Sounds very negative to me. And then as a teacher, I was able to remove, so that's key, that gives us the operation, a debt. And a debt also is a negative number, but because it's being removed, we're going to show how that actually becomes a positive thing for us. So let's translate this. Owed $30,000 is going to be negative 30,000. I'm going to work up here in the summary portion, so there's enough space on the back for you to be able to write your summary, so don't worry about it. You can just write your summary on the back. So I owe $30,000. remove, just so you can catch it here, remove means subtract, right? So subtract, put that there. And debt of 17,000, we all know debt is a negative number. So negative 17,500. So I remove, which is the subtraction, a debt of 17,500. Notice I put both the subtraction and the negative symbol there, because this is a debt. And this best represents this story. I can't put 30,000 plus 17,500, because technically they didn't give me $17,500. They just said I don't have to pay back this amount. They removed a debt. And those, I know it's a subtle difference, but those are two different things. It would be different if they gave me $17,000. I'd be like, ooh, man, cool, give me that money. But this one was different. I owed them $17,500, and they just say, you know what, you don't have to pay me that back. So I do get to add that back onto my balance or decrease the amount of money that I actually owe. But they didn't actually give me an extra $17,500. So subtracting the negative best represents debt forgiveness. Okay? And we can see debt forgiveness right here. You want to add this in. This lets me know when I remove the debt that my debt was forgiven. My debt was removed. It's like a reversal. Like I had to pay this, but now I don't. Okay? So think about different situations in real life where you have to pay something, but then you don't. For example, like in football, I can lose yardage off of a call, but then if they review the tape and they say, you know what, they did actually, it wasn't a penalty, they can give me that 5 yards back. So it's like removing a debt of 5 yards. So now I get that 5 yards back. Okay? So then you guys doing stories, like, you know, I gave you a little bit of a hint there. So let's see how this works. In this situation, I owed $30,000, but they removed the debt or forgave me $17,500. So the question is, do I have to pay all of this back now? No. They removed this amount, right? So instead of the full $30,000, they're going to forgive me this amount. So what do we need to do to figure out how much more I have to pay? Okay, should I be paying $47,500? That doesn't make sense, right? If I only owe $30,000 and they removed $17,500, I shouldn't owe more money. I should actually owe less. So these two numbers, we're going to subtract them. And I taught a trick in class that students can do. And what you want to do to see how much I owe, take what they removed, right? So they removed $17,500. And we want to see what gets us back to this $30,000. The next whole 10,000s place value is going to be 18,000, right? So what do I add to this to get 18,000? Well, if I add 500, I'll get to 18,000. And the next whole step there would be 20,000. Haven't got to 30,000 yet. What do I add to 18,000 to get 20,000? Well, I just add 2,000 more. Now I want to see, man, what takes me back to 30,000? That's my next whole step. So that would just be 10,000. And if I take those three things, 500, and then 2,000, and then 10,000, will get me back to the 30. So the amount that I still need to pay is going to be $12,500. So, and the question is, did I pay off the full amount? No, they only forgave me a portion of it. So I still owe this. So in this story, I will owe $12,500 still. That's better than the full $30,000. So my answer, since I owe it, is going to be negative $12,500. Okay? So this is a little bit different. That's why we're spending more time on removing debt because it's a little bit more complex of an idea. Okay, but that gets you started, especially if you missed the notes that day, and if you didn't understand the notes, you can watch this video and get a deeper understanding of the material. Alright, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the classroom. Nerd up.